Smokin'. A smokin' cool scene, I guess, we're about to watch. And with that being said, Hallo zusammen. Today I, a German native speaker and language teacher here on YouTube, will react to the Inglourious Basterds German accent scene, and especially the performance of Michael Fassbender, or as Germans might say, Michael Fassbender. Let's check it out. I'm gonna highlight certain things here and there that attract my attention as a native German speaker that might diverge from what Germans usually sound like when they speak standard High German. That's my point of reference here, just so you know. And it's not about highlighting errors and mistakes and, feeling good about, oh, I noticed that mistake and that was wrong and that is wrong and that's not the point. I want to highlight those things for you guys learning German or being interested in the German language and culture, how those things work, and how realistic his speaking, his pronunciation basically is. I'm gonna pause it, by the way, quite often, I guess, just so you know. And just for context, he is playing a British Lieutenant Archie Hicox, who is supposed to kill Adolf Hitler together with the Bastards in the Operation Kino, Operation Cinema, so to speak, when they watch a premiere of a Nazi movie. And this is pretty much before that. In other words, he sort of pretends to be German.
Was führt Sie nach Frankreich?
The kind of funny thing is, even though he isn't in the focus in this scene and this video right here, because he is not Michael Fassbender, as you might be able to tell, he sounds really unusual as well, let me put it this way. That is totally legit. I mean, he definitely sounds German drunk, if that makes sense. He's slurring the endings of words and the vowels a little bit,
Was führt Sie nach Frankreich?
That alone is pretty accurate, I'd say, judging from my own experience.
Das geht Sie nichts an.
Okay, so he said, das geht Sie nichts an. That is none of your concern. When Germans actually say something very seriously, they might have a tendency to really pronounce every single suffix that they might otherwise actually colloquialize in spoken daily German. For instance, in this case, this phrase contains nichts, nothing. In common spoken daily context, many Germans actually say nix instead of nichts, which is pretty similar, but nix is N-I-X, nix. So the ending is different and the pronunciation is different therefore. In this case, he says nichts.
Das geht Sie nichts an. Sie haben vielleicht nicht die Gastfreundschaft des Fräuleins mit ihrem betrunkenen, rüpelhaften Benehmen strapaziert.
Okay, a lot of things there. He actually swallowed that last T in the term der Gast, in the compound word die Gastfreundschaft.
Sie haben vielleicht nicht die Gastfreundschaft des Fräuleins.
What I want to say here is, even though Germans do have a tendency to drop certain consonant endings of terms in spoken German, that is not always the case. For instance, in this context, in this compound word, since it's within a word, the consonant T at the end of Gast, die Gastfreundschaft, Germans probably wouldn't drop it.
Sie haben vielleicht nicht die Gastfreundschaft des Fräuleins mit ihrem
He basically says irrem instead of ihrem. So he basically speeds it up, and Germans wouldn't do that because this term contains a prolonging consonant, the H, which is quite typical for some German words as well. So in this case, it's ihrem. No German would say irrem.
Mit ihrem betrunkenen, rüpelhaften Benehmen strapaziert.
That sounds really cool, doesn't it? Mit ihrem rüpelhaften Benehmen. But sorry to say this, and some of you might be aware of that, I've actually talked about the trilled or rolled R in German before in a video about Till Lindemann, the singer of Rammstein, because he likes to do that. But that doesn't have anything to do with standard or high spoken German. It may be referring to certain German dialects, that is true, even though you might say, okay, that sounds very German and what I associate with German, fair enough, but it's not true for spoken standard or high German. That is something that would definitely raise the attention of German agents, for instance, or people that might look at you and say, okay, where are you from? Let's roll back a little bit because there is so much to address in this sentence alone, so let's do it.
Sie haben vielleicht nicht die Gastfreundschaft des Fräuleins.
What he does really well here, which I guess could be a problematic thing when you first learn German, is he drops the E in the suffix en, haben in this case. So he said haben, which is just typical, it's perfect for spoken daily Deutsch. Spoken German, that is. Because Germans wouldn't say haben, even though it's en at the end, it is haben. So you basically drop the vowel at the end and in that suffix. That is a recurring fixed thing in spoken German, no matter the dialect basically, that is just common, and he does that really well.
Sie haben vielleicht nicht die Gastfreundschaft des Fräuleins.
Also, little detail, but it's really important because in German, in spoken German that is, we have two different types of sounds. We have the light, for instance in ich, me, I, but we also have a more throaty type of sound. For instance in das Buch, the book. The choice of and basically correlates with the used vowel that comes right before it. So in ich, for instance, it's a comparatively light vowel, so it's and the same is true here because he says nicht, not. So it wouldn't be nicht or something like that, it's nicht. And he does a perfect job there.
Darf ich Sie erinnern, Oberfeldwebel?
Okay, the stressing of certain syllables. That is something that can also be tough. Many German nouns have a tendency to get stressed in the first syllable, right? At the beginning. That is also true here for the term der Oberfeldwebel, right? And he basically says Oberfeldwebel.
Oberfeldwebel.
He basically stresses the last part of this compound word, which isn't really what Germans would do. They would say der Oberfeldwebel. It's the little things that give it away.
Oberfeldwebel. Sie sind Soldat. Das ist ein Offizierstisch.
Das ist ein Offizierstisch. That was pretty much perfect. Overall, don't get me wrong, even though I'm pointing out certain little details here and there, and some are more obvious to German speakers than others might be, keep that in mind. Overall, I think he does a really, really good job, but there are still certain things that just will give it away. I would actually sort of doubt that he is a native speaker.
Ich schlage vor, dass Sie das Fräulein nicht weiter belästigen.
Okay, so another thing that I want to highlight here is the ending er, because that is a recurring ending in many German words actually, and in this case it appears in the term weiter. When you have the ending er, it's pretty much always an a type of sound. So he basically said weiter.
Nicht weiter.
Weiter. And the thing is, Germans wouldn't say that. When you have a German word ending in er, it's pretty much always an a. So in this case, it would be weiter. To quote Linkin Park and one of their most underrated songs, I think, the little things give you away.
Dass Sie das Fräulein nicht weiter belästigen und an Ihren Tisch zurückkehren.
Okay, that sounds really French?
Zurückkehren.
It sounds really French. Zurückkehren. Something that a German would expect from a French accent in this situation right here. And that is pretty much because of the r. Zurückkehren. The R is too strong in that term. In German, that would be zurückkehren.
Zurückkehren.
Zurückkehren. So it is sort of throaty, but it's not zurückkehren. But then again, of course, I'm well aware of the difficulty of, pronouncing the German R. That is totally alright. I totally get that.
Entschuldigen Sie, Herr Sturmführer, Sie haben einen sehr ungewöhnlichen Akzent. Woher kommen Sie?
So, I don't know about you guys, but maybe I'm overanalyzing this, but he says, Sie haben einen ungewöhnlichen Akzent, and the fact that he says accent and not dialect might actually give away he doesn't think that he is a native speaker. And of course we know he isn't. I don't know agents in person, at least none that I know of, but I guess, really assimilating and adopting a certain linguistic style, the pronunciation of things and the verbalization of vowels and endings, certain suffixes, prefixes, whatnot, recurring fixed things in spoken German, in this case, that can be quite tough because it's so easy to really get noticed as someone not being a native speaker when you don't get certain little details right. And just imagining, you know, he is talking and having a normal conversation, plus he has to be careful about these little details, doing both at the same time could be quite tough. But I guess that also might distinguish good agents from bad agents at the end of the day. But I don't know. What do you think? Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to let me know by leaving a like and by sharing the video with others. That also helps. And of course, also make sure to check out my video description with many interesting links to my socials and support options, including my Patreon page, PayPal, and of course an option to become a channel member. You can find that button right next to the subscribe button as well. Your support is highly appreciated, so I really want to thank every single one of you guys for doing that or considering that. And anyway, thanks for watching. I'm your Vlog Dave. Tschüss und bis zum nächsten Mal.